Okay, so a while back, a buddy of mine told me about some advice that he was given that I think is just fantastic. When he was starting a PhD program, someone told him that there were 3 kinds of authors he needed to identify, collect, and read regularly throughout his program. They said find one pastor, one theologian, and one fiction writer or poet. Find one author in each of these categories and read everything of theirs that you can. Let them be your conversation partners, your guides, your mentors throughout your program. Now, I've always thought that was great advice, but as I've pondered it lately, I've actually become convinced that some kind of similar setup would be so helpful in the Christian life. So here's my recalibration of that advice for you today. Here are the 3 kinds of writers you need to have speaking into your Christian life on a constant basis. The first writer is a writer for the heart. This is a writer that has the ability to speak to your heart, to your soul, to your interior world, your emotions, your affections. This is a writer who helps you make sense of the feelings and the desires and the confusions that come in the Christian life, all which happen in your interior world. The goal of this writer is to find someone who helps you understand yourself, your motivations, your hang-ups, your idols, someone who writes in such a way that it stokes your desires and loves, because how you live is shaped so much by what you love. Now, again, I hesitate to give too many suggestions, but I want to offer a few writers that could fall into this category just to get the wheels spinning. You might look to someone like Eugene Peterson or Timothy Keller if you're looking for modern day writers. For older writers, you could look to someone like Richard Baxter or John Newton or Jonathan Edwards. These would all be writers who would help you find yourself and shape your loves so that you love God and others more. Now, the second kind of writer you need is a writer for the mind. You need a writer that can help you form and grow the life of the mind in your Christian walk. This is someone that pushes you, that sharpens you, that stretches you, that teaches you, that shapes you into a better thinker. This person will introduce new ideas to you that you have to sit with for a while and chew on. The goal in this case is to find someone that asks questions that awaken you, but who also chases down the answers and explains their thinking in a way that brings you along and helps you understand the issues and implications better. Now, depending on your particular interest, which could be so wide-ranging, there are a lot of ways this could go. A few suggestions in this category, though, for example, could be like J.I. Packer or Michael Horton if you're into theology. If you're interested in apologetics or philosophy, you could look to someone like Francis Schaeffer or William Lane Craig or Alistair McGrath, or even G.K. Chesterton or Os Guinness if you're into cultural analysis, Mark Knoll if you're interested in history. If you're interested in biblical studies and biblical theology, think of someone like Michael Bird or N.T. Wright or Christopher Wright. Find someone who asks questions that you find riveting and who helps you think more clearly as you work to answer them. Okay, the last category is for a writer for your imagination. And I cannot overstress how important this category is. Your imagination and your ability to image realities is what holds so much of your thought world together. It's what holds the life of the mind and the life of the heart together so that they fuel each other. All of the thinking that you do in the Christian life about the kingdom of God that seeks to connect ideas together or anticipate or creatively think about how to apply certain texts or envision new realities in your life or in your church or in your community, all of that happens in the space of your imagination. So for you, this could be a fiction writer or a poet or a short story writer. Examples might be, you might pick someone like Wendell Berry or C.S. Lewis or George MacDonald or Frederick Buechner, Dostoevsky or Victor Hugo. The best kind of writer in this category is one that surprises you, that stretches you, and that warms you and satisfies you with the stories and poems that they tell. Now, of course, these 3 categories and these kinds of thinkers overlap because your mind and your heart and your imagination overlap. You're never operating in just one of these categories. But reading each of these kinds of writers can be so formative. So here are just a few tips to get you going. The first is, don't overthink it. Just pick a writer who has multiple books that you think would fit into one of these categories and start collecting and reading their work. Start with one book at a time. You might even have one of these authors on the shelf, a book that you've not read before that you could pick up today and start. Just read a book, and once you're done with it, get another. Don't be afraid to switch to another writer in a category if the writer you've picked doesn't connect for whatever reason. Don't be afraid to ask for recommendations is another point of advice. If anyone wants to ask about a particular writer in the comments, I'll give my opinion if I've read them. Lastly, you can alternate between the categories and read one book for the head and then one book for the heart and then one book for the imagination, or you can read a book in all three categories concurrently at the same time, which is what I typically like to do. As I said before, I'm going to be posting a series of writers to collect videos. So if that kind of content interests you, be sure to check back. I want this channel to be helpful to you in your walk with Jesus. Until then, feel free to check out this video where I share about a few short books that were game changers in my Christian life. Blessings.